Hey folks, welcome to our latest Koda Connections. Very excited about the topic today. I'm going to pass it off to one of our staff members to introduce our speaker, Dr. Julia Blanchette.
Great. So I'm excited to welcome Dr. Diana Isaacs here tonight. She's an endocrine, but really a diabetes clinical pharmacy specialist at the Cleveland Clinic Diabetes Center, and she is the CGM and remote monitoring program coordinator, which basically means she's a very I was gonna say very fancy, but maybe that's the wrong word. Very great at all of the diabetes technologies and really well aware of all of the new and cool things. So she's an internationally recognized diabetes pharmacist, and it's really great that we have her here tonight. So give it to Diana. Dr. Isaacs.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. So yeah, I'm going to give an overview of kind of the landscape of all the different technology options that we have in diabetes, as well as kind of a glimpse into some things in the near future that we might expect. So when we think about technology, I've split it up really into these 4 categories where we've got continuous glucose monitors or CGM, insulin pumps. We also have connected insulin pens or caps, and then also mobile apps to connect these various things. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by talking about the CGM landscape, and just kind of in a quick overview is that CGM very different from, traditional blood glucose monitoring in that it's measuring every 1 to 5 minutes, depending on the type of device. And then it's actually recording that data every 5 to 15 minutes. So when you think about it, every 5 minutes translates into 288 readings a day. So really providing a lot of great information. And then this picture just shows, sometimes people like to understand how it's working. It's actually measuring the glucose from the interstitial fluid, and then using a transmitter to communicate that information to some type of receiver, which is often either an insulin pump or a smartphone. So pretty neat. A1C has long been kind of the metric that we measure, we measure diabetes by, but it has so many limitations. And this is just showing that, a 7% A1C, which is often the goal for many people, could really mean a lot of different things when you look at the CGM data. And we are aiming for really more time in range, and what we consider in range is between 70 and 180. And so the goal for most people is actually to be 70% or more in that range. And, a person could have a 7% A1C and be spending all their time in range, or unfortunately, like this image on the left, they have tons of variability where they're high, low, high, low. And so that's really where CGM is so beneficial, because we get the full picture, much more than just an A1C alone can give us. Beyond that though, I think the real-time data is like really where it's at. So, not just having all those numbers or just having, knowing what the number is at one point in time, you also have the trend arrow. So you know the direction that glucose is going. And that's really powerful because, a 110 and steady is very different than a 110 and dropping. And so having that information can really help you to feel confident about, getting ready to be active, or, getting ready to go to sleep. So also we know that it has the ability to have alerts, to have high and low alerts, as well as many of the CGMs even have these predictive alerts. So you can predict, for example, if you're going to be low in the next 20 minutes. In terms of the options that we have available now, so we have the Libre II, we have Medtronic's Guardian Connect or Guardian 3, the Dexcom G6, and then also Eversense. So I'm going to talk about these in a little bit more detail. And then I also wanted to give, a glimpse into the future where we can expect the Libre III, Dexcom G7, and then Medtronic's Guardian 4. So I'm going to go through all of these just in a little bit of detail. Dexcom G6, a lot of people are familiar with or already wearing. It's a 10-day wear time. It does have a 2-hour warm-up every time it's changed out. It is FDA approved for ages 2 and over. And then there's no calibrations required. So calibrations are when you need to do a finger stick and then use that number to kind of confirm the readings. It is optional though. So if like the readings start to veer off from what, from being as accurate, you at least have that option. Now that little gray piece that you kind of can see inside there, that's the transmitter, and that needs to be attached each time, and it's saved and you can use it for 3 months. It is FDA approved for making dosing decisions, meaning the data is considered to be very accurate enough to do that. And then you have a choice of using a receiver or a smartphone or the compatible insulin pumps. There is high, low, and predictive low alert. And then mobile app compatibility with the Dexcom G6 app, as well as Dexcom Clarity, and then also Dexcom Follow, which can allow up to 10 followers to be able to see the data in real time. And then it pairs with the Tandem, the t:slim X2 pump, as well as with Omnipod 5, and then also with InPen. And then it's considered an ICGM, which I'll talk a little bit more about. The next one I want to quickly go through is Medtronic's Guardian Connect and Guardian 3. And the reason why there's 2 different names on here is that there is a standalone CGM that would be used with a smartphone, and that is the Guardian Connect. And then there is the Guardian 3, which is the one that's used with the insulin pump, with the Medtronic 770G insulin pump. So this has up to a 2-hour warm-up, and it is a 7-day wear. There is a transmitter that's attached. This transmitter is generally good for beyond a year. It has a 1-year warranty. It does need to be charged between each use. So every week, when it's changed out, it needs to be charged, and then it's going to be reinserted again. And one thing to note is there is interference. So all of them have some kind of drug interaction. Even Dexcom has an interaction with hydroxyurea, which is not such a commonly used medication. But this one has an interaction with acetaminophen, which is what's in Tylenol. So that can falsely elevate the reading. So that's, helpful to know. One other thing about the Guardian Connect, the version that's not with the pump, is it is compatible with the InPen, which is a connected pen. So that's kind of a newer thing. And then there is a Guardian Connect mobile app that's used with it. And then there is the ability to have followers through CareLink mobile. And then there is a mobile app for the 770G pump, which allows the data to kind of easily be shared with the healthcare team. And anyone who's getting, a Medtronic pump now would be getting the 770G, not the 670G, although there's a lot of people out there that have the 670G. And then the Guardian 3 is actually approved for ages 2 and over. And then the Guardian Connect is 14 and over. But even though there are age requirements or age approvals, they always can be prescribed off-label for younger kids. Next is the Libre II. And this is what's considered an intermittently scanned CGM. So what that means is you have to scan it with the reader or with the smartphone. It doesn't automatically, you can't just look at your phone or your receiver. You have to scan it to see the readings. There is a 1-hour warm-up period every time the sensors change. And this has the FDA approval for ages 4 and over. When Libre first came out, the original Libre, it was only approved in 18 and over. So that was something that had changed when the Libre 2 became available. Also, the Libre 2 does have real-time alerts. So you can customize alerts for high, low. There is no predictive alert. So the real-time CGMs all have predictive alerts where you can, predict, for example, an impending low. This does not have that, but it does have a low alert that you can set, as well as an out of range. You have to be within 20 feet of the reader to pick up the signal for these alerts. And even when it beeps to let you know about the alert, you still need to scan it though to know what the exact value is. It is FDA approved to make treatment decisions except during the first 12 hours after insertion. So it's recommended to confirm with finger sticks during that time. And then the sensor really holds about 8 hours of information. So it's recommended to try to scan at least every 8 hours. Otherwise, when you go to look or download the data, there will be gaps in the data. There is vitamin C drug interference at doses over 500 milligrams where it can falsely elevate the readings. There is a Libre II mobile app, and that is available on Android and iPhone, so that can be used instead of the reader. And then there's a Libre link up that allows up to 20 followers to see the data. Now the followers will see every time it's scanned, they'll know the number, and they will also get the real-time alerts. But if the person wearing it does not scan it for a long time and does not get any alerts, then they won't see those readings during that time. And then also this has the ICGM status that Dexcom has, and this one in particular has compatibility with Bigfoot Unity connected pen caps. And I'll be talking about the connected pens in a little bit later. So Eversense has actually recently had some updates. This is the only implantable sensor. So normally, a sensor is replaced every 7 to 14 days by inserting it, on the skin. But this is actually an in-office procedure where the sensor is placed in the upper arm, and then there is an outer transmitter that goes on the outside of the arm. What's nice about this is it's very easy to fully detach from the CGM. Most of the others are a little bit more challenging to detach from because it would require you to fully replace the sensor. And we know, the cost of the sensors, you only get a certain amount. So, you'd be wasting a sensor if you just decided, okay, I want to take a shower and not wear anything. So it's much easier to just detach when you want to from that transmitter. Also, the transmitter has on-body vibe alerts. So even if you don't have the smartphone nearby, you can still get those alerts for the highs and for the lows. What has recently changed about Eversense is that originally it was only a 90-day wear. And so you had to come back into the office every 90 days to have a procedure to change out the sensor. It's recently been expanded to 180 days. So that's 6 months. So that's a lot better. Now you only have to go into the office twice a year to have to change it. The other thing that's changed is the number of calibrations. And I forgot to mention this with Medtronic. Medtronic requires calibrations at least twice a day, every 12 hours. Eversense in the past has also required one every 12 hours. However, now with this 180-day version, you still need to do it every 12 hours the first 3 weeks, but after that, it actually goes down to just one calibration a day. So that's kind of nice. There is also a mobile app that you use to see the data, and there's an Eversense Now app that allows 5 followers of the data. And this one has drug interactions too. It's actually with tetracycline antibiotics, so that's a little bit different and helpful to know. Also, all the sensors need to be removed if you're having an MRI. However, Eversense, you still would need to remove that outer transmitter, but the sensor that's implanted, that's okay, to continue wearing. So that makes it a little bit easier. And you can see in this picture there how small it is, the part that goes into the arm, and then that transmitter. Now that transmitter does need to be charged every day. So that's kind of an important thing to note. It does need to be charged daily. So just comparing, I put this chart together that just kind of compares the different products as well as the type of integration there is. So, like the Guardian 3 is going to pair up with InPen and the Medtronic pump. We know G6 pairs with the Tandem and Omnipod 5 now, as well as InPen. Libre II pairs with the Bigfoot Unity, and then Eversense at this time does not have a direct integration. You can see the wear times here, the warm-up time. I didn't mention Eversense has like a full 1-day warm-up time, so that's a little bit longer. There's some difference in FDA-approved sites, like for example, Libre II is the upper arm versus G6 is the abdomen or upper buttocks in kids in addition to the abdomen. However, just one thing to note is that you can always talk to your healthcare team, and you can use different sites. For some people, even a Libre will work better on their abdomen, and for others, the G6 is going to work better on the arm. So you can always talk to your healthcare team about where to place it and consider using alternate sites as necessary. You can see the drug interactions. MARD is a term that refers to accuracy. And just the thing to know with it is lower the better. The FDA generally says, you know, if MARD is below 10%, that's considered pretty accurate. And you can make treatment decisions off that data, like, you know, treating a low blood sugar or, you know, making a decision about how much insulin to give off that data. The only exception is with Medtronic system, they still, you know, the FDA still technically says that you're supposed to confirm with a finger stick before making treatment decisions. And then all of them now have alarms. And the other thing I wanted to mention or go back to is this ICGM status, because this is really awesome. This stands for Integrated CGM or Interoperable CGM. And to get this classification, you have to have very good accuracy, even higher accuracy than the minimum, you know, standards for the FDA. But what it allows for is for the device to work with other compatible devices for integration. And so what the future is going to look like is that, you know, people can use whatever ICGM they want. They could use whatever iPump they want, and then they could pick their algorithm on that pump. So people would really have a lot of choice in terms of how they want to manage their diabetes, what sensor they want to use, what type of pump, and all that. We are not 100% there yet because, you know, certain CGMs only pair with certain pumps at the moment, but this is really the future, and so that's pretty exciting to see. There's several mobile apps, and I've, you know, mentioned some of the ones that go with the corresponding CGM, but I just included this chart, and, you know, you guys can have that for your reference, because there's also other systems like Tidepool and Gluco, which can be used to download or review data for multiple types of systems. And then, you know, if you're using a connected pen, they also have their own portals. The InPen has their system, Bigfoot Unity has their portal system, and then Medtronic has CareLink. So lots of different ways to view the data. Now, the pipeline is very exciting, and I can't possibly talk about everything in the pipeline because there's so much. There's a lot of new companies out there that are trying to develop CGMs and even less invasive CGMs, like, you know, people are trying to see if they can develop watches again and all kinds of things. But what I would say is kind of nearest future are these 4 areas: Libre III, the Dexcom G7, the Guardian 4, and then Eversense specifically is looking at a 1-year wear and then reducing those calibrations even further to just 1 time a week instead of, you know, even 1 every day. I think a lot of people are really excited about Dexcom G7, and this seems like it would be pretty near future. It's already been submitted to the FDA, so they're currently reviewing it, and recently there was a publication that talked about the accuracy of it. And so this just provides kind of a nice table of how it's different from the G6. The MARD, so that, again, that's the accuracy, it is actually expected to be a little bit better, and they specifically studied it on the arm, which had great accuracy. That 8.2 is, you know, very low, indicating really high accuracy. The other thing, though, that warm-up time. So waiting 2 hours for your CGM to start can feel like an eternity, and not knowing what your blood sugar is during that time. And so now that's been decreased to under 30 minutes. So that's really great. On top of that, so the wear time is still 10 days, but there's this 12-hour grace period. If you're over the 10 days, that you kind of get that additional 12 hours of time to change out your system. There's still, you know, the alarms are going to be similar. The compatibility with both Apple and Android is similar. The look of it is different, though. It's actually much smaller. Hopefully you can kind of tell from this picture. It's just, it is a lot smaller, more like nickel size. And the transmitter now is fully disposable. So you don't have to worry about saving it and, you know, saving it for 3 months and then getting another one. The whole system is disposable, and the insertion technique is also a bit simpler. Although, you know, the G6 is simple in that it's just a button press, but you can see here it's a little less waste. It's a little just a smaller overall, been redesigned. So I think that's really exciting and coming up. Also exciting though is Libre III, and Libre III is actually available in some other countries. So it's definitely been in Germany for a little bit, and then recently it got approval in the UK. And so this is nice. The system, instead of having to attach the pieces, you get the box and then you have to unscrew and like attach the pieces, it actually comes just ready. You just have to unscrew the top and then, you know, you press it down and you insert it. You can see on here the Libre 3 is actually much smaller from the original Libre. They say it's the size of 2 stacked pennies instead of the size of 2 stacked quarters. But the kicker, the really big difference is that now this is a real-time CGM. So meaning that it's like the Dexcom and Medtronic and Eversense, in that you can look at your data any point, and you don't have to scan it to see the glucose reading. So that's a pretty major update. And so we don't know yet when that's going to come to the US, but my understanding is that's also been submitted to the FDA. So stay tuned on that. And then Medtronic also has a bunch of things in their pipeline. So Guardian 4 is actually also available in other countries now. You'll notice it looks exactly like the Guardian 3. However, it's different in that it does not require calibrations. So that's huge. I mean, to not require all those calibrations every single day. But it's still similar in that the size is similar, you know, the taping it down, and then it is a 7-day wear, and the transmitter still needs to be charged every week. Now, what is exciting that's in their pipeline is what's going to be called the Simplera CGM. And you can see it's very, very flat there. This is more like a Libre in the sense of it's a fully disposable transmitter sensor. And in fact, the insertion is very similar to how you kind of would insert a Libre. So we don't have a ton of details on this yet. Except that Medtronic has said, you know, they're ready to submit it to the FDA. However, they're still waiting to hear back on Guardian 4. So they have not submitted it to the FDA yet. And then also in their pipeline, working with companies like Clue to really personalize meal handling and providing kind of guidance through mobile apps about, you know, how, you know, patterns from CGM and different foods. They have a mobile app called SugarIQ, but that's going to be discontinued. And so they've been working with Clue and other companies to really kind of optimize these algorithms and everything. So that's high level CGM. I'm going to go now transition into pumps, and, you know, keep your questions in mind because I'm happy to address any questions you guys have about all of these different products and everything. So with pumps, we've really come a long way. Thinking back to the first pumps in 1963, I mean, this is a huge backpack, right? So fortunately now pumps are really tiny and a whole lot easier to use and navigate and more sophisticated. Traditional pump therapy though, it's using one type of insulin. You know, instead of having a long acting and a mealtime, you have one type of insulin. Usually it's going to be a rapid acting insulin or an ultra rapid acting insulin. And this really helps to minimize insulin variability. And then you have all these settings you can input into the pump through the help of your healthcare team. So you can have different basal rates, or, you know, your background insulin, different amounts at each hour. You can set customized carbohydrate ratios as well as sensitivity. And a carbohydrate ratio is how much, you know, 1 unit of insulin is expected to cover a certain number of grams of carbohydrates. And then that sensitivity is how much 1 unit is expected to lower the glucose level. And then you can customize the targets, also how long the insulin is expected to act in the body. And you can set maximums for the basals and the boluses. And the beauty of all this is that there's a bolus calculator. So once these settings are put in, all you have to do is, you know, basically put in how many carbohydrates you're expecting to eat and then the current glucose level, and it does all these calculations for you. But we've really come a long way because now we are in the era of hybrid closed loop therapy. And you will notice that I said hybrid closed loop. I did not say artificial pancreas. People love to use that term. It sounds like a nice term. However, unfortunately, we don't have a true artificial pancreas at this time, because to me, that implies you put the pump on and it just acts like a pancreas and you can carry on and not have to think about your diabetes ever. And unfortunately, we're not there yet. You still have to think about your diabetes. There's still a lot of work to be done, but it makes it easier. It does a lot of the background for you. And so what all these systems can do is basically say, okay, glucose is running higher, they can increase that background insulin. Or, maybe you're heading lower, they can decrease that background insulin. So they all work with CGM to be able to automate this process. And, some systems out there can even give automatic correction doses if it continues to be high and that background insulin is not enough. All the systems, though, at this point require the person to still bolus, to still enter in carbohydrates and bolus for meals. And really, the reason why this is still required is because insulin, even our fastest insulins, just don't act fast enough. And so if you don't bolus at all for food, what happens is glucose will go high and then the pump's like trying to catch up, but it's still like not really able to fully catch up. And so it'll remain high for a few hours. So it still requires, the bolusing to really get the maximum benefit from it. Whenever I talk about pumps, I just like to let people know that there are also what we call patch pumps. So these are really much more basic. Technically, these are approved for adults, but again, off-label things can be used with a, discussion with healthcare team. But both of these devices provide a way to bolus more easily, essentially. So Secure Simplicity is a patch that holds 200 units of insulin. And basically, you can do on-demand dosing. You click the sides of it, and it gives 2 units at a time. It does not have any of those smart features where it's got a bolus calculator, but what it does do is it provides kind of a wearable insulin where it's easier to give insulin. You don't have to pull out your pen or your vial and syringe. It's just, it's a little bit easier. You are limited though to 2 units at a time, with each of those clicks. So for some people that's going to be, too much. They may need much smaller doses. Vigo is a similar concept to that. However, so Simplicity is changed out every 3 days. Vigo is changed out every day, but it has a background insulin. Unfortunately, it's pretty limited in that you have to choose 20, 30, or 40 units of background insulin. So that will work for some people, but those set doses are not going to work for everyone for sure. But it's the same idea in that you do clicks for these 2-unit increments. So those are, kind of wearable insulin options. What most people on pumps are using, though, are what we consider smart insulin pumps. And these are where you've got those bolus calculators and you can download the data and really review everything in detail. And so we've got Omnipod Dash, and then more recently approved Omnipod 5. We have t:slim X2 with the Dexcom G6, and there's 2 algorithms. There's Basal-IQ and ControlIQ. And then we have Medtronic 770G with Guardian 3, although some people, have the older 670G. So just some brief information about each of these different types. So the Omnipod Dash, people love it because it's tubeless. It's the only tubeless pump option. And so that just is so convenient in terms of not having to worry about getting the tubing stuck on things. If you're really active, it's just, you kind of a lot less worry about that. The pod holds 200 units of insulin, and it's dosed, you give insulin through what's called a PDM, which is actually an old locked Android phone. So it's, it's pretty small, but you do have to carry that device around to be able to give boluses of insulin. It is a rechargeable battery. There's a food database in there, which can help sometimes with like carbohydrate counts, and you can save, for example, you can save certain foods if you use them commonly to put in the bolus calculator. There's an automatic cannula insertion and priming. So it's kind of all controlled through a button versus other pumps with tubing. You have to kind of more manually do that process. And then it is directly connected with a contour meter, meaning if you use this meter, those numbers will automatically go to the pump. However, at this time, the Dash is not directly connected with any CGM. You can view the data in Gluco, like if someone's wearing Dexcom, but it's not directly communicating with each other. So the upgrade to this is Omnipod 5. This is the system that is directly communicating, and this is our hybrid closed loop system. And very exciting, we just got approval of this within the last month or two. It is a limited launch right now, meaning only certain people have been able to get early access to it, but we expect in the next couple of months it will hopefully be widely available to everyone. And this has some unique features. There are adjustable glucose targets that can be set anywhere from 110 to 150. There's adaptive basal rate. So again, that background insulin is adjusting based on someone's unique needs. There's also a hypoprotect mode, which is designed to really reduce the risk of lows, where it's got that higher 150 target, and the algorithm's a bit less aggressive in this mode. And what's really exciting is the anticipation that it will be controlled through a smartphone, meaning a person will not have to carry, an extra PDM, an extra device to control this. However, just so you know, in this current version, it only, I think, works with like one type of Android phone. But the future is that it'll have compatibility with iPhone and, many other Android types of phones. And then there are plans to also integrate, for example, with Libre II in the future. But at this point, it's integrated with Dexcom G6 only. And I included on here adjustable settings because whenever you use a hybrid closed loop, the algorithm has certain things it does, and there's less, sometimes that you can adjust manually. And so I think it's helpful to know what things you can adjust that would help the algorithm versus what things will have no effect on it. So these are the things for this system that you could adjust that would have an effect. So Medtronic 770G, this is with SmartGuard auto mode, and similar to this idea of hybrid closed loop systems, it's adjusting every 5 minutes, and it's aiming for a target of 120. And what they're saying, so one of the big upgrades going from 670 to 770G is that now this is Bluetooth connected. And why that's important is because what the company is saying is that most people who get 770G now, then it would be a simple, and free, hopefully, software upgrade to get 780G. They wouldn't even need to change out their whole pump. It would just be a software upgrade, which is great. In terms of adjustable settings in the automated mode, only carb ratio and active insulin time can really be adjusted. So you will notice that's less than some of the other systems because really the automation is working off of, these predictions, and there's less things that you can kind of manually adjust. When it's not in auto mode though, when it's in this manual mode, there are options to have a suspend on low or suspend before low, which can be good options. There's also an option to have a higher temporary target. This pump holds 300 units, and it does include batteries, or you need batteries. So that's a difference too. Some pumps, you charge them, others, run off of batteries. And some people like the batteries better because they never remember to charge things, and other people don't like carrying extra batteries. So it's really unique preferences. This pump works with the Guardian 3 CGM, but also the AccuCheck guide meter is used and can be connected, and those readings would automatically go there. This system does require finger sticks. So with Guardian, you do need to do at least 2 finger sticks a day. Many people find they do need to do more than that to keep the automated mode running and to kind of not get kicked out. They find that they do need to do more, like at least 4 or more finger sticks a day.
And they were all right.
Yeah.
Next system I want to go ahead and talk about is the Tandem. And so this is a touch screen. Again, this is one of those rechargeable that you got to plug in. It also holds 300 units, and it integrates with Dexcom G6. And there's 2 algorithms, actually. There's BasalIQ, which adjusts and suspends for lows. And then there's ControlIQ, which is that fully, hybrid closed loop. One thing I like to point out is there's a T-Simulator mobile app. So if you're not using the system and you want to learn more about it, you can actually download the app, and it's super cool because it basically makes your phone the pump, and you can see how it runs and all the different features. I use that a lot, like when I'm talking to patients and I'm trying to walk them through like how to make a change in their pump. You know, I just pull out my phone and I'm like, oh yeah, you go here, you go to this menu. So it's really, really nice to have that. Now, Basal-IQ is the older algorithm. This is the one that came out before Control-IQ. And this is FDA approved for ages 6 and over. And it suspends insulin if the CGM predicts that you're gonna go below 80 within 30 minutes. And what this looks like, this is an example. This is like a 24-hour period. And those diamonds represent times when insulin is suspended. And so you'll notice, you know, it's suspended a few different times to help protect the person from going low. It wasn't perfect though. The person still went low. So it's not going to completely get rid of lows, but it does greatly reduce them. And I think allows you to be a little bit more aggressive with the background insulin. And one of the things with Basal-IQ is that if someone does have Basal-IQ and they want to update to Control-IQ, it's a software update, so they can easily do that with their pump if they want to go ahead and change to that other system. Now, Control-IQ, this is our advanced hybrid closed loop system where it's adjusting. One of the big differences with this algorithm compared to what we saw with Omnipod V and with Medtronic's 770G is that this works off of the pre-programmed settings. So it actually works off of the existing basals. And as a clinician, I kind of find that nice because I feel like there's more things we can adjust that will kind of be able to help increase the time in range. But on the other hand, if your basals are set really wrong, then that could also make the algorithm not work as well. The other unique thing about this is that there are automatic correction doses, 1 every hour. And it's conservative. It gives about 60% of the programmed correction, and it's aiming for a goal of 110. But those can be really helpful, you know, if someone remains high, to get some additional insulin to kind of bring them into range. This is also FDA approved for ages 6 and over. And one thing to note is that when you're on Control-IQ, unfortunately, you cannot go back to Basal-IQ. So you're kind of stuck in with this. You can't go back if you decide you want to, you know, change. The software update does not go both ways, only the one way. And then this is just showing what Control-IQ targets. So it's interesting. It's actually aiming for 112.5 to 160 most of the time, but then there's different sleep activity and there's exercise activity. So sleep activity has a tighter target of 112.5 to 120 versus exercise activity has a higher target of 140 to 160. In the sleep activity, there are not automatic corrections, but there are during exercise and kind of the usual mode, up to 1 every hour. So sleep is really designed to have more aggressive algorithm when a person's not eating. So, because when they're not eating, it's less likely they would need to have those additional correction doses. And then you can see here, what this is showing, the data on the right, is just those drops represent automatic corrections. The bars, those blue bars, kind of show times when the insulin is increasing versus the diamonds represent that it's suspending. So it's really, you know, it's very dynamic insulin delivery based on the CGM readings. And then what's coming soon? Well, the FDA recently announced that you can bolus off of the phone. Instead of having to, you know, take your pump out, you can actually bolus from a mobile app. So people can sign up for this now. It's expected to be fully released in the summer, and it is available on iPhone and I believe, I think Android as well. And hopefully it'll continue to expand in terms of compatibility, you know, the longer that it's out and everything. So that's really exciting to, you know, be able to do things from the phone instead, especially depending where you're wearing the pump. It could be inconvenient to pull it out, you know, to bolus. So what does the future hold? Well, there's a lot of things that potentially in the future, but I think Medtronic's 780G is definitely nearest future. And then we also have Beta Bionics and Tidepool Loop as well. So Medtronic 780G, the reason I say this is nearest future is because this is actually already available in like 40 countries outside of the United States. So our FDA is a little slower to approve things here. But this, again, it has that basal rate automation, but several improvements from the original 670 and 770G. So it has a way more aggressive algorithm, and you can actually adjust the target all the way down to 100, while still having the temp target option of 150 if you need, if concerned about hypoglycemia. But the reason I say it's way more aggressive is because it actually has automatic correction boluses every 5 minutes. So it's I don't know how it's doing that, but it's providing way more correction doses and also increasing the time in closed loop. So one of the issues with the original 670 and then 770G is that there's a lot of parameters that cause a person to get kicked out. And then they go back to their manual settings. So this has really changed that, where a person is spending most of the time now in that closed loop system. The adjustable settings are still limited in that it's the carb ratio and the active insulin time. But what is expected, and actually in Europe, it's already working with the Guardian Sensor 4, which is great because that does not require calibrations. And also that system is considered non-adjunctive, meaning you don't have to confirm with finger sticks to be able to use the system. And so hopefully when it's approved in the US, it'll be approved with the Guardian 4. And then also, that future sensor, that would be even easier to use. And then the other thing that's available outside the US and hopefully will be available in the US is this extended infusion set. So this is an infusion set that's designed to last for 7 days. And currently, the existing infusion sets are designed to last for up to 3 days. So that's amazing because that means you don't have to change out your site as often. And they've changed the materials around, so it's really designed to be safer to use it for that length of time without causing site irritation and without kind of, I guess, ruining the quality of the insulin and things like that. So that's really, really exciting. Now, something to keep in mind, though, is that, the pumps, it holds 300 units of insulin. So if someone goes through 300 units of insulin more quickly than 7 days, they're still going to have to, add more insulin and stuff, but still exciting. And then Beta Bionics iLet. So recently there was a clinical trial and the results are going to read out at some upcoming conferences with a single hormone, meaning with insulin. But what is planned to happen in upcoming randomized controlled trial is with glucagon and insulin. So this to me is more like an artificial pancreas, right? Where it's actually giving insulin, to lower glucose, but then if the sugar gets too low, it's able to give glucagon, in small little doses to kind of counteract that. So really exciting. This is designed to hold 160 units, but it actually, it uses these cartridges. So it's a little easier to put the insulin in that you don't have to necessarily fill it up. You can get these pre-filled cartridges instead and just put it into the pump. The other really cool thing though, is this is programmed by entering a body weight and starting the CGM. So all those settings I showed you before, like the basal rates and the carb ratios and sensitivity factor, you don't have to do any of that. You just have to put in the body weight and start the CGM, and it starts learning you and it starts working. And then the other brilliant part is that for bolusing, so you do still have to bolus, unfortunately, but you don't have to be very exact. You can put less, usual, or more for your meals, your 3 main meals, and that's it. It really does the rest. So pretty cool how it's, simplifying diabetes. And so we'll see what happens in the upcoming clinical trials. And then I just wanted to mention the tidepool loop. So there is the whole, you kind of do it yourself looping movement, and a lot of different options out there for how to do it. But tidepool loop is unique in that they're trying to actually take their algorithm and go through the FDA, get it approved, where people could download this mobile app on their smartphone and then use it with compatible CGMs or a compatible pump. So going back to that idea, like this ICGM, where people can choose their algorithm, they can choose their CGM, they choose their pump. They're really offering a lot of choice for people. And so there's several organizations partnering in this initiative, you know, Dexcom, Medtronic, Helmsley, JDRF, Insulet. And so that's exciting. I know this was submitted to the FDA. I haven't heard, you know, what the current status is, but it would be so amazing if this, you know, got approved, because, you know, the looping, what's so nice about looping is there's just more customization you can do. Like you can really get lower targets. You can adjust so many more things than we can really adjust with our current FDA approved devices. And then also in the pipeline is T-Sport, which more recently Tandem said is going to be called Moby. And this is more like a patch pump type of thing, and that it's really, really small. And you would dose off of a mobile app, and you can see the size here, how it's so much smaller. There is like a tiny infusion set that it's attached to, so it's a little bit different than like Omnipod, but it's so much smaller and so much easier, kind of not, you don't have all that long, super long tubing. This would be a little smaller, and that it would only hold 200 units instead of 300 units. And it would have an on-pump bolus option if you wanted to do it that way. But the idea would be that you'd probably do most everything through the mobile app instead. So, and I know all the pump companies are eager to have ideally kind of a tubeless system, but you know, I guess the technology to do that is, you know, a little challenging, but that is the goal of kind of all the big pump companies. I wanted to let you know there's a great resource out there. There's something called the Panther Program, and there's some really nice handouts. And so if you really want to know like more of the ins and outs of these different pumps and everything, this compares the different algorithms and kind of some of the customization of it. So these handouts are really, really nice. And it just talks about the different things you can adjust, how you can, like what customized targets you can use for them. And so you could kind of check that out. I provided the link there as well. So the last thing that I wanted to cover today is about connected insulin pens, which I think is the area that's really going to explode in the next couple of years. And it already is really growing a lot. So we have two current options now. We have the InPen, which pairs with Guardian Connect or with Dexcom G6. And then we have Bigfoot Unity, which pairs with Libre II. And the idea with a connected pen is that it offers the bolus calculator features that a pump can offer, but you're not wearing a pump. You're still using a pen. And in fact, like with the InPen, it's actually a reusable pen. I have one here. It's a reusable pen, and you fill it up with cartridges. So you can get pre-filled cartridges at the pharmacy, you put it in there. But it can actually be a great tool as a backup, you know, having a pump backup if something happens, and at least you've got your smart pen and it pairs with a mobile app, which has all of your current settings in it. Some people like to take a pump break, and so having a tool that still incorporates some technology, but being able to go to injections is, I think, a nice option to be able to have. So this can go in half unit increments. So that's one of the nice things about pumps is you can get really small increments. So traditional pens usually go down to 1 unit, but this does go down to half units. It has a 1-year lifespan, so there's no charging or anything. There's no batteries, but it will stop working after 1 year. And then it does integrate with both with Apple Health and with Gluco and Tidepool. But also the InPen mobile app directly integrates with that Guardian and Dexcom data. So, and then it's compatible with Humalog, Novolog, and FADCES, those pre-filled cartridges. And then multiple pens can be paired to the app. So it's possible to have extra pens as well. And then I did just want to show, so in terms of the settings, there's a slightly less you can customize compared to a pump. You can do up to 4 timed settings for the day. Pumps allow like up to 24. I mean, there's so many you can do. Although most people don't really need that many. 4, I would say, works well for many people. But also, it doesn't have to be, like if you're not fully carb counting, there's options to do set doses and also to do meal estimates, like small, medium, large. What's nice about whatever feature you use is that you can still incorporate this idea of extra correction insulin, where you can input in your current blood sugar reading and then get additional insulin or subtract insulin if you're, above or below your target. So those are kind of some of those smart features that if you're just doing manual injections and you don't have a smart pump or smart pen, can be kind of challenging to figure out. The other big thing why connected pens are great is they keep track of active insulin. So for example, if you just gave yourself insulin, 2 hours ago, that insulin is still working in your body. So yeah, maybe you could give more, but you're not going to want to give the full dose because you still have some insulin working. But it's really hard to determine how much to give if you don't have some device that kind of calculates, oh, you have 3 units still working, so actually this is how much you should take. And so these devices do that. They subtract how much insulin is working and really guide you on the safe dose to take. So that's a nice feature. Bigfoot Unity is newer and it's a little different. It's a little simpler, I would say, a little less sophisticated versus the InPen. Also, the model of getting it is a little different. So InPen you can get from the pharmacy. Bigfoot Unity actually, it goes through a system called remote monitoring. So you do have to work with a clinic that is doing this remote monitoring program to be able to obtain the device. It is, and just, yeah, it's FDA approved for 12 and over. The InPen is 7 and over, although it can be any age with the oversight of a parent or adults. So this is a cap that can fit on most insulin pens, almost all insulin pens. And there's a cap for long acting and a cap for the rapid acting. Just so you know, just going back to the InPen just works with your rapid acting. So you would still take kind of your long acting like usual. But this pairs directly with Libre II. And essentially what you do with a smart pen cap, I should have gotten my demo out, but what you do with it is you take the cap, you scan the reader, and then it advises you on basically how much insulin to take. Now, it is a little simpler in that you can only program in there 3 different choices for basically small, medium, large meal, or 3 different kind of carb estimates. So there's a little bit less customization, although these can be changed over time, but there's a little less customization. What it does include, though, again, is that correction factor where, if blood sugar is high, you can take extra insulin. It will tell you how much to take. In terms of its active insulin time, it just defaults to 3 hours. If it's been within 3 hours, it's not going to advise to take any. And then if it's been more, it'll say, okay, safe to take, and it'll calculate. And also these are rechargeable pen caps. So you do have to remember to charge them each day. And then it tracks that a dose is taken every time the cap is removed from the pen. So that was a lot of information. I wanted to leave you with these resources. These are probably like my 3 favorites. Diabeteswise.org is a wonderful website that really helps you to figure out what would be the best technology for you based on things that are important to you. Like, do you want to wear something? Don't you want to wear something? Do you need reminders? There's so many different factors, and it walks you through that. And I also really like that it's a non-industry sponsored site. So I think it's very objective and really provides a lot of detailed and accurate information about all of the different products. Diatribe.org, I love its patient education information, and I think it's really high quality, and it's also like really spot on and has all the new stuff. So I've been telling all my patients, a lot of people are asking me, well, how will I know when Omnipod 5 is like available for everybody? And I say, just subscribe to Diatribe, because I'm like, the first day it's available to the masses, I'm sure they're going to email everybody. So that's wonderful. And then just included the link to this device comparison from the Panther program that I think is really great out of Barbara Davis Center. So that is all of my information. I know it was really a lot of information, but now I'm happy to open it up to any questions that you all have today.
No questions?
How can that be?
That's not real.
I would say no questions from me. I am astounded really by just how many options are truly out there, and some that I just haven't heard before, such as the pen. And it gives me a little bit of anxiety thinking about, you know, how many different pump systems we're going to see at camp year after year after year, because just a handful of years ago, majority of our campers were still injectors coming to camp, and then it's changed overnight. And so I'm just scratching notes like crazy and chatting with Julia about, you know, how we need to update our medical manual even more with all these different systems coming online. And we do a pretty phenomenal job. We don't turn away folks, and we take DIY. We do everything where a lot of other camps don't. So we're ahead of the curve. But it's also really exciting hearing all this stuff coming out. So I'm type 0 coming into it, but I'm like, man, what a cool system. Like, that looks really cool. If you know, I like this one or I like that one. And what a great resource to have all the kids and be in one spot, especially the newly diagnosed kids at camp, being exposed to all these different systems so they get to see it in action and pick and choose. So yeah, I was very excited to see all this.
Yeah, it's definitely really exciting, and you know, it's going to continue to evolve. So, but I love the fact that people have choices now. You know, people can really choose what system would work best for them. Also, something I didn't mention that's kind of unique is that Omnipod 5 is going a different route in terms of obtaining it. So typically, like with most pumps, you go through what's called a durable medical equipment supplier. And that locks you into a long contract, usually at least 4 years. And so what that means is if you decide after a couple years, oh, there's this new system and I want to try that, you're kind of out of luck. You have to wait until your contract is over. With Omnipod 5, they're actually going the pharmacy route. So it's going to be a prescription to get the pods. And what that means is you're not locked into a contract. So actually, if you're already using a previous pump and you want to try it out, you can. And then if you try it out and you decide after a little bit, like I want to go try something else, like you're free to do that. So I really like that also, that just gives people more choices. The other thing that's been good is just this idea of software updates too with the Bluetooth. You know, Tandem has done that, and now Medtronic is doing that. And so that's nice because, you know, if something, you know, newer and better comes out, you're not stuck again for that 4 years. At least you can upgrade to that newer thing. And, you know, a good example is like all the people on Tandem, Basal-IQ, they were able to get ControlIQ, and it was pretty smooth, that process for them to be able to get it. And now that this, you know, mobile app bolus calculator is out, people are going to be able to update to that, you know, without having to pay more or, you know, wait 4 years. So those have also been really nice developments in the pump landscape.
Diana, what is your opinion kind of heading into this next year? You know, what pump system do you think is going to kind of be the dominant one, primarily for kiddos 18 and under? I know there's a lot of hype around Omnipod 5 coming out, but I mean, what do you kind of predict that's going to kind of be the next hot thing, just like ControlIQ was when it came out?
Yeah, I really do think Omnipod 5 is going to be the big thing, at least for kids, just because of the tubeless, you know, the tubeless system and now the automation. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for that. And, you know, a lot of people haven't, the only reason they're not using Omnipod is because it doesn't have a hybrid closed loop system currently. So I do think that's going to be the next big thing. It'll be interesting, though, how that compares to ControlIQ, because ControlIQ has worked so well for people, just so well. It's a really like just such a nice, smooth algorithm, and people don't get kicked out. And, you know, it works off of the existing settings, so we can really tailor it to the person. Omnipod's algorithm is a little more similar to Medtronic's, although people aren't going to get kicked out all the time because they're going to wear a Dexcom and, you know, they're not going to have the sensor issues. So it'll just be interesting, you know, how it's able to keep up, because, you know, when you do clinical trials, you have a limited number of people and you're monitoring them really, really closely, and it's kind of a controlled environment. But when you start bringing technology to the masses, to everyone, you know, you start seeing everything and kind of all these different and unique cases. So All I can say is I think you guys, it will be an adventure at camp, because, you know, you get to see how it works, how it can keep up with all that activity and stuff. Is it really able to, you know, prevent those lows, or you're gonna have to override it and suspend it. So it'll be really interesting. But yeah, I am really excited to see that. And then just one other thing I will add is I am also really excited about Medtronic 780G. I'm, you know, a little frustrated that it's in all these other countries and we're like stuck waiting on it. But the data that I've seen presented, even in kids, is like really impressive. Like consistently across the board, the average time in range is like mid-70s in kids. Like it's unreal. Like that's, you know, that's pretty challenging to consistently, you know, get there. So I am really excited to see what that'll look like. And especially I think with a new and better sensor, that will provide a nice option. So I don't know. I think it's just exciting times all around.
Yeah, that's great. Very much looking forward to it. Other folks on the presentation, specific questions about your pump system or a new system coming on the market?
My son is a new diabetic, and I'm really excited to get him on the pump. We haven't done it yet, so we're waiting for the new one to come out, but I'm super excited for it.
Awesome. So you're waiting for like Omnipod 5 to be available?
Yes, we are. So I wanted to hook up with his Dexcom. And he is only in 5th grade, so I wanted to hook up to his cell phone so while he's at school and everything's easier, just for him to be almost a normal kid again. When he goes to friends' houses, he doesn't have to bring out his pens and do his insulin injections, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Right. Yeah. So hopefully it'll be soon. I'm like really hoping this limited launch ends soon and it's widely available, because I know I've got people just like you waiting and and really looking forward to it being out.
Yeah, he's not even a year into this, and it's just so hard. He's, you know, 10 years old. He's going through a lot. He is emotional. It's a lot for a kid to take on, and I could not be more excited for him to have a pump that's tubeless, where he feels normal. It's the same size as his Dexcom. It's so exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely.
Great. Okay. All right. Any other burning questions out there regarding the pumps? All right. Well, Diana, I want to thank you. This has been super informative. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. We will put up a recording on our website, send it out to, I did receive 4 or 5 emails while it was going on from folks unable to make it, but wanted to see it. And then, you know, I think we're going to really take this webinar or your presentation and really make it a part of our staff training for this upcoming season here, just to get folks really understanding of all the different systems and what they're likely to encounter at camp. And then, of course, our medical team then writes policies and procedures around every single one of these systems to put into place this summer for it. So very exciting. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And if folks have additional questions or thoughts that they wanted to send along, please, you know, send them to camp and we'll pass along to Dr. Isaacs here and we can get some answers for you.
Awesome job. That was so awesome, as always.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diana.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me and inviting me. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great evening.